I used a pop psychology trick to create fear of loss in my boyfriend. Now he lives on his own time zone, and I've lost him completely. Okay, look, I know how this is going to sound. I get it. I sound like a crazy person, but just hear me out for a second, right? I just wanted to inject a little spark back into our relationship. I read this book, this stupid book about loss aversion and how men need it. So I started disappearing. Every Thursday for 3 hours. No phone, no contact. And the result? He didn't have a breakdown. He created a new time zone for me, called Minerva Standard Time. And now he's the one who has completely disappeared. I think I really messed up. Owen and I had been together for 4 years, and for 3 of them he was my anchor. He's a data analyst, which should tell you everything. He's kind, stable, and his entire world is built on logic and predictable outcomes. After a string of chaotic relationships in my early 20s with musicians and entrepreneurs, Owen felt like a calm port in a storm. I loved his quiet confidence, the way he could fix anything, the soothing rhythm of our life together. For a long time, that safety was all I needed. But somewhere around the 4-year mark, that safety started to feel like a cage. A very comfortable, well-furnished cage, but a cage nonetheless. Our life had become a perfectly optimized, soul-crushingly predictable loop. Wake up, work our separate jobs from home in our silent, tidy apartment, cook dinner from one of our 5 rotating healthy recipes, and then settle onto the couch to watch some obscure Nordic noir crime drama he'd found. The coasters were always perfectly aligned with the edge of the coffee table. The remote was always in its designated spot. It was nice. It was suffocating. I started to feel less like his girlfriend and more like a recurring data point in his daily routine. Taken for granted. One night I spent 2 hours getting my hair done, a pretty significant change, and when I came home he just kissed my cheek, eyes glued to a spreadsheet on his laptop, and said, "Hey, you're back." He didn't notice. He genuinely didn't notice. I felt invisible. I tried to talk to him, in my own way. I'd drop hints, testing the waters. "Hey, wouldn't it be fun to just drive somewhere this weekend? No plan, just go." He'd give me this tired little smile, the one that wasn't really a smile, and say, "That sounds chaotic, Min. The probability of finding a decent hotel last minute is low. Let's just relax at home." I'd suggest a new, exciting restaurant, and he'd pull up the menu online, scrutinize it for 10 minutes, and declare its logistical failings. The parking situation looked suboptimal. It wasn't that he was mean. He was never mean. He was just passive. He avoided any conversation that felt like a confrontation. My gentle prodding for more excitement was, in his mind, a conflict to be de-escalated and neutralized with logic. He just absorbed my frustration with this placid, unreadable expression, a wall of pleasant indifference, until I ran out of steam. And that silence, that refusal to engage, was 1,000 times more infuriating than a real argument. It made me feel like I was the unreasonable one, the demanding one. And a tiny, resentful voice in my head started whispering, "He's making you do this. If he'd just listen, if he'd just show a little passion, you wouldn't have to go to such lengths." It was the perfect excuse for what I was about to do. The idea arrived like a divine, toxic revelation. I was doom-scrolling through Instagram one night, feeling particularly unseen after Owen had spent our entire dinner conversation optimizing our grocery budget, when an ad popped up. It was for this ridiculously titled ebook, The Scarcity Principle, How to Rewire His Devotion and Make Yourself Irreplaceable. God, it sounds so pathetic now. But at that moment, it felt like someone was throwing me a lifeline. I clicked. I read the free sample chapters. It was all slickly packaged pop psychology, full of buzzwords like dopamine triggers and intermittent reinforcement. The chapter that really got me was called The Power of the Void, Manufacturing Loss Aversion. The author, some self-proclaimed relationship guru with perfect teeth, argued that modern men have become complacent. They see constant availability as a given. The only way to reignite their primal, protective instincts, she claimed, was to introduce a controlled element of chaos, a sudden, unexplained absence. It would force him out of his comfort zone and make him confront the terrifying possibility of a life without you. I was hooked. I bought the whole damn book. It was my secret little project. I'd read it on my phone while Owen was methodically cleaning the coffee machine. The book was full of these little missions. Start small, it said. Leave his texts on read for an hour longer than usual. Then escalate. The ultimate technique was the scheduled disappearance. I remember sitting there, highlighting passages on my screen, and my brain was literally split in two. One half, the rational half that loved Owen, was screaming, "This is insane. This is manipulative and cruel. You solve problems by talking, not by playing stupid mind games." But the other half, the part of me that felt starved for attention and validation, was completely seduced. It whispered back, "It's not a game, it's a strategy. You're not being cruel, you're being smart. Other women are doing this and have perfect, adoring partners. You're just managing the relationship. He's a system, and you've just found the user manual." That cognitive arrogance, that feeling that I knew better, was so powerful. I convinced myself I wasn't a villain. I was a scientist, and our relationship was my experiment. I chose a Thursday for the first experiment. It was the most boring, predictable day of our week. Nothing ever happened on a Thursday. At exactly 6:03 p.m., as Owen was logging off his work computer, I grabbed my purse and keys. "I'm just popping out to the grocery store," I said, my voice a little too bright. He just nodded, already opening his laptop to browse for a new documentary. He didn't even look up. It was the final push I needed. I walked out the door, and as soon as I was in the hallway, I turned my phone off. The feeling was electric. It was a terrifying, exhilarating cocktail of guilt and power. I didn't go to the grocery store. I drove to a Starbucks on the other side of town, one I knew he'd never think to look for me in. I ordered a latte I didn't want and sat in a corner, watching the clock on the wall. Every minute that ticked by felt like an eternity. My heart was pounding. Was he worried yet? Had he noticed I'd been gone for more than 20 minutes? At 8:30 p.m., I left the Starbucks and sat in my car. My hand was shaking as I turned my phone back on. It buzzed violently, a cascade of notifications flooding the screen. 12 missed calls from Owen, a string of increasingly frantic texts. 6:45 p.m. "Hey, you still at the store?" 7:15 p.m. "Min, everything okay?" 7:40 p.m. "Minerva, I'm starting to get worried. Please just text me back." 8:15 p.m. "I'm calling the police if I don't hear from you in 10 minutes." A sick part of me felt a jolt of triumph. He noticed. He was scared. When I walked through the door at 9:01 p.m., carrying a single, sad-looking bag with a carton of milk I'd bought from a 24-hour convenience store, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. He rushed over and wrapped his arms around me so tightly I could barely breathe. "My God, Min, where were you?" "Your phone was off. I was about to lose my mind." "I'm so sorry," I lied, my voice dripping with fake innocence. "My phone died, and I ran into an old friend and we just got to talking. I completely lost track of time." He held me at arm's length, his eyes scanning my face, and the relief washing over him was palpable. That night, he wasn't a passive, logical data analyst. He was attentive. He was present. He kept touching my hand during the movie, as if to make sure I was still there. And as we fell asleep, he held me closer than he had in months. It worked. God help me, it actually worked. I felt a disgusting surge of pride. I wasn't just his girlfriend. I was the architect of his emotions. For the next 4 Thursdays, the routine was the same, a perfect little Pavlovian experiment. I'd leave, turn off my phone, and go hide out at the same Starbucks, nursing a single coffee for 3 hours, buzzing with a toxic mix of adrenaline and shame. And each time, I'd come home to the same predictable, beautiful result. A frantic, worried Owen who would then spend the entire weekend smothering me with the affection I craved. He started planning things. On the second weekend, he surprised me with a picnic. On the third, he actually booked a non-refundable weekend trip to a little coastal town. It was everything I had wanted. The book was right. I was a genius. I started to get cocky, arrogant even. I felt like I had cracked the code to his heart, and the secret was just a little bit of controlled terror. I ignored the sinking feeling in my stomach each time I lied to his face, ignored the flash of genuine fear in his eyes. This was for our own good, I told myself. It was a necessary evil to keep the spark alive. Then came the fifth Thursday. I walked out the door at 6 p.m., giving him the same breezy, just running an errand line. I went to my Starbucks, opened my laptop, and smugly waited for the 3 hours to pass. I was so confident, I didn't even feel the nervous thrill anymore. It was just part of the process. At 9 p.m., I walked back into our apartment, ready for my dose of panicked affection. But it wasn't there. The apartment was quiet, except for the sound of sizzling from the kitchen. Owen was standing at the stove, calmly stirring a pan of risotto. He glanced over his shoulder as I came in, and he smiled. It was a perfectly normal, placid smile. "Hey, you're back," he said, as if I'd just been in the other room. My blood ran cold. I just stood there in the doorway, my heart hammering against my ribs. Yeah, sorry I was gone so long." "No problem," he said, not even turning around. "Hope you had a good time." This was not part of the script. My brain was scrambling, trying to process the data. Where were the missed calls? The frantic texts? I checked my phone. Nothing. Not a single notification. He hadn't tried to contact me at all. You weren't worried?" I asked, my voice sounding small and weak. He finally turned to face me, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He had this calm, almost sympathetic look on his face. "Honestly, Min, the first few times I was terrified, but then I noticed a pattern. It's always Thursday, always for about 3 hours. So I figured you just need some time to yourself then. It's cool. Everyone needs their own space." And then he delivered the line that felt like a punch to the gut. "I actually set a recurring event in my calendar," he said, turning back to his risotto. "From 6 to 9 p.m. every Thursday. I call it MSD, for Minerva Standard Time." I just stood there, completely frozen. Minerva Standard Time. He had taken my grand, manipulative psychological strategy and turned it into a neat, tidy, logical calendar entry. He hadn't gotten angry. He hadn't confronted me. He had simply observed the data, identified a pattern, and optimized his own response to it. He had absorbed my chaos and neutralized it, filing it away as just another one of my predictable quirks. It was the most Owen thing he could have possibly done, and it was 1,000 times more devastating than any fight we could have had. My carefully constructed power dynamic shattered in an instant. The game was over and I had lost. I panicked. No, it's not like that," I stammered, rushing into the kitchen. I can explain." "You don't have to," he said, his voice still infuriatingly calm. He tasted the risotto from a wooden spoon. "It's really okay, Min, I get it. You need your space. I'll make sure not to bother you during MSD from now on." That was the moment I knew I had broken something irreparable. His communication avoidance, the very trait that had driven me to this madness, had evolved. It was no longer a passive shield. It was an impenetrable wall. He had walled off a part of his life, a part of his emotions, and labeled it with my name. The weeks that followed were a special kind of hell. I stopped my Thursday disappearances, of course. I was home every night, trying desperately to be the perfect, present girlfriend. But the damage was done. The dynamic had shifted permanently. He was polite, he was kind, but he was distant. He had emotionally checked out. MSD was no longer just a 3-hour window on a Thursday. It felt like he was living in it full time. He started going to the gym on his own. He made plans with his friends without checking with me first. He had created a life that ran parallel to mine, a life where he no longer depended on me for his emotional equilibrium. I had wanted to make him fear losing me, but instead, I had just taught him how to live without me. The end came 2 weeks after the creation of Minerva Standard Time. It wasn't a bang. It was the quietest, most anticlimactic ghosting I could have ever imagined. I came home from a work lunch on a Tuesday afternoon. The apartment felt empty, too tidy. I walked into the bedroom and his side of the closet was bare. His toiletries were gone from the bathroom. His laptop and chargers were missing from his desk. He hadn't taken everything, just the things that were exclusively his. All our shared furniture, the art we'd bought together, the stupid matching mugs, they were all still there, like artifacts in a museum of a dead relationship. There was no note, no final, dramatic confrontation, just a single, cold key to the apartment sitting dead center on the kitchen table. My first reaction was disbelief, then pure animal panic. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. I called him. It went straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I sent him a text. Owen, where are you? What is happening? Please call me. The message sent a single blue tick. It never turned into two. He'd blocked my number. I tried WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook Messenger. Blocked. 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 He had performed a complete and total digital amputation. It was a cold, efficient, and utterly devastating cutoff. I spent the next hour in a complete frenzy, trying to find some trace of him, some explanation. That's when I remembered his old laptop, the one he never used anymore, stored in the hall closet. I don't know what I was hoping to find. I just needed something, anything. I booted it up, my heart pounding. His user profile was still there, not password protected. I clicked through his documents, my stomach churning with guilt. And then I saw it. A Word document titled Drafts. It was a single, unsent email, addressed to his older brother, dated 3 weeks ago, right after the second Thursday I had disappeared. My breath caught in my throat as I read it. Hey Dave, got a weird question. I don't know who else to talk to about this. Something is off with Minerva. For the last 2 Thursdays, she's just vanished for a few hours. Phone off, no explanation. When she comes back, she acts like nothing happened. I feel like I'm going crazy. Did I do something wrong? Is she seeing someone else? I try to talk to her, but it's like talking to a wall. I feel like I'm being punished, but I don't even know what my crime is. It feels so cruel. I just sit here, staring at the phone, feeling like a complete idiot, just waiting for her to decide when she's done punishing me. What do I do? Reading those words broke something inside me. All this time, I had been painting a narrative in my head where I was the clever protagonist, the one in control, executing a flawless plan. I saw myself as the director of our story. But that email, that raw, confused, painful plea, showed me the reality. I wasn't the director, I was just the villain. He wasn't a system to be manipulated. He was a person I had systematically tortured with my stupid, selfish games. The controlled chaos I had manufactured wasn't a fun little spark. It was a cruel and unusual punishment, and he didn't even know what he was being punished for. I finally did what I should have done months ago. I called my best friend, Jessica. I sobbed the whole pathetic story down the phone to her. The book, the disappearances, the MSD, the empty apartment. I think I was expecting some comfort, he's an idiot for leaving platitudes. Instead, there was just a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. When she finally spoke, her voice was completely devoid of pity. Minerva, she said, her tone flat and sharp. You read a manual on how to treat a human being like a lab rat, and you followed it perfectly. You ran an experiment on him, and when he didn't react the way you wanted, you got mad. Now the experiment is over, and the rat has escaped the maze. Why on earth are you surprised that he doesn't want to stay in the cage? Her words were like a slap in the face. I hung up the phone, the echo of her brutal honesty ringing in my ears. She was right. I had treated him like a project, not a partner, and that's where I am now. Stuck. I spend my days in this silent, half-empty apartment that feels more like a tomb every day. I'll have these moments of blinding clarity where I know, with absolute certainty, that this is all my fault. I was arrogant, I was cruel, and I got what I deserved. I start typing out long, rambling apology texts to his blocked number. But then, an hour later, this insidious, resentful voice creeps back in. But why couldn't he just talk to me? It whispers. If he had just told me how he felt after the first time, none of this would have happened. He's the one who never communicates. I find myself hating him for his silence, for leaving so cleanly, for not giving me a chance to fix it. Then the wave of self-loathing crashes back in. I delete his number from my contacts, only to find myself searching his name on Instagram through a friend's account an hour later, just to see if he's okay, if he's happier. I am trapped in an endless, nauseating loop of regret and resentment, forever stuck in a time zone of my own making.